My beloved Castlevania series. It's my favorite, don't you know? Anyways, after the mega sleeper hit that Castlevania Symphony of the Night became, assistant director Koji Igarashi was given more opportunity to make great games in the series. His next project was a remake of the original Castlevania entitled Castlevania Chronicles on the PS1. It was an okay game. But his next true game was 2002's Castlevania Harmony of Dissonance, released on the Game Boy Advance. Igarashi intended the game to be a successor to Symphony of the Night, not necessarily a sequel, but a game in the same vein. This might be why it's my second favorite portable Castlevania game, with Dawn of Sorrow being my favorite. There are many similarities between the two games, as you'll soon see. Let's get down to the story. Taking place in the year 1748, around 50 years after the events of Castlevania II, involving a young Belmont by the name of Just. He, along with his best friend Maxim, set off to Castlevania to find their other friend Liddy, who was kidnapped. Just a little side note, it's interesting to note that Just is actually the combination of a Belmont and a Belnades. So he's able to wield the vampire killer and use magic spells too. You enter the outer castle grounds and immediately meet up with Maxim. You discuss the game plan and Maxim takes off on his own, leaving you to venture forth and explore solo. It's up to you, mostly, to recover your missing friend and just figure out what the hell is going on. You'll notice two things straight out of the gate. Number one, the graphics have seen a tremendous improvement over its predecessor, Circle of the Moon. And two, the music in this game is awesome. I mean, just listen to the first track in the game, theme of Just Belmont. Dissonance uses many of the same techniques that were utilized in Symphony to great effect. This includes scaling and rotating sprites, shifting levels, explosions, and transparencies. Just now has a shadow effect that Alucard had. Many of the items and power-ups you get in the same game are carried over, and the castle layout is very similar to Symphony, with multiple rooms and corridors branching out from each other. The RPG system returns and basically functions in the same way. You kill things, collect item drops and experience, become a badass whipping machine. Simple. Sub-weapons return as usual and are used in the same way. Being half Belnades, you can also use magical spells this time around, in the form of 5 books you collect, each having to do with a different element. These books can be combined with said sub-weapons to produce super magical attacks. Very useful on bosses or annoying enemies when you just want to get them out of the way as fast as possible. As previously mentioned, non-linearity returns, which means you can, for the most part, go anywhere you want. Granted, you don't come across a magical door, or a special layout that requires extra gear or items. Unfortunately, this is where the first negative tidbit from me comes in. Yes, there is non-linearity. Yes, there are 2 castles again, much like Symphony. Unfortunately, unlike Symphony, you have to travel between the 2 castles just to advance the game. This might have seemed like a novel idea way back when the game was being designed, but holy shit, does it confuse the fuck out of me sometimes. And it's not really that it's difficult, it's just annoying, because you could easily spend 2 hours running around one castle, looking for the next item to progress, only to realize that the area you need to go to can't be reached in the current castle, so you have to travel to the other castle, then run back to the area you were at, pick said item up, go all the way back to the warp point, return to the first castle, then go all the way back to where you needed the item in the first place. Whew. I think you get the idea. As you make your way around, you'll recognize a decent chunk of enemies. Many return from previous titles in the series, but there are new ones as well. Bosses are well-rounded and well-designed for the most part, with the giant merman being my personal favorite. None are too hard, but all give a decent challenge. Unfortunately, the final boss fight with Dracula Wraith, I find, is a pretty big letdown. It just doesn't have the sort of grandiose we as Castlevania fans expect from the final confrontation with the Prince of Darkness. Much like previous games in the series as well, this game has multiple endings based on doing certain things, like in which castle you beat the final boss, and whether or not you're wearing certain bracelets. There are subtle changes in each ending, but basically, you overlook the castle as it crumbles in the distance, and then you run away. The audio side of things are done very well too. The sound effects are not mind-blowing, but for the Game Boy Advance, they're nicely done. The soundtrack is awesome, as previously mentioned. It's a different style than Circle of the Moon, but for some reason, I find a lot of nostalgia in the compositions, and I don't know why. It's like the music is from a previous Castlevania game, but I just never heard it before. Does that make sense? Overall, Castlevania Harmony of Dissonance is a great addition to the series, and was one of my favorite games to play when I used to own my Game Boy Advance. I still continue to play it now and then, mainly because of the nostalgia, and also, it was just a well-designed game. If they ever released a compilation or HD remaster of the Game Boy Advance Castlevania games, I'd buy it in a second. Thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, go check it out. Don't forget to check out my Twitch account for live shoot-'em-up action, my real-time playthrough videos, MAME Mondays, and other fun gaming videos as well.